pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. And if we can have an approval of the minutes from June 4th.
Move to approval of minutes of June 4th, 2024.
Is there a second?
Second.
Discussion? Hearing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
New public business. Anyone here with new public business? Mr. Betancourt, please. Welcome, Tony.
Hey, how you doing? Antonio Betancourt, Precinct 5 Town Meeting Member, 15 Thorpe Circle, Danvers, Massachusetts. All right, I'm here because we know what's going on with the airport, right? Yesterday we had another plane that went down in the Merrimack River, which doesn't make me happy anyways. But one other thing I have is the other day I was listening to the scanner, and they found some drugs up at the airport, 191 Old Newberry Street, okay? They turned them into the police department anyways. I did go down to the police department and put in for a Freedom of Information Act. I want a copy of the reports so we can figure out what's going on, because that airport, you guys keep giving them everything, and I'm telling you, they're not taking care of us, okay? We have to wake up and do something, okay? So when I get a copy of the report, I'll be glad to turn it in to let you know what's going on, because to me, it doesn't make me feel happy, okay? Drugs going around up there, I mean, come on. And I'm hoping that maybe there was a meeting the other night. I don't know if you know, folks, a lot of people showed up. I went out and I walked 50 houses. No one wants this goddamn jet hangar, okay? No one wants it, okay? I'm going to walk 50 more houses this week, okay? I know there's meetings and stuff like that, but we have to wake up as a town and take care of our residents, okay? That's my honest opinion. I'm here hoping that the board will finally listen to us and finally do something. That's all I can say.
Thank you, Tony. Anyone else with new public business? Hearing none, we'll go on to number 3. The board will hear an update from the town moderator on the Town Meeting Act, Town Manager Act Review Committee. Madam Moderator. Welcome.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Hello, board members.
Tell people at home who you are, in case they don't know.
No, I should say, I'm Pat Fraser, your town moderator, and I was entrusted with helping to form a committee of town meeting members to look at our charter. As you may know, the last time we had a charter review committee, it was in 1993. And it was in response to a series of complaints with regard to the electric division at that time. This time around, being proactive, the board did put this on as a warrant article to establish a committee to look at the current town charter and make recommendations. As a historic footnote, I'll let you know that I was on that original charter committee in 1993 as a very young, inexperienced town meeting member. And looking, I had Steve forward me a list of the members of that committee, and there are only 3 of us who are still alive. So there were, that committee was a lot of older people that were very experienced town meeting members. The board, I will assure you that I work closely with your chair, Dan Bennett, to formulate this committee. We met, went over proposed names, went through, and came up with an agreement of town meeting members, 1 from each precinct, a member at large, and a chair. We've decided that the chair is Sally Calhoun. We have met with Sally, what was that, Dan, about 2 weeks ago, I think, to talk about what our expectations were, what her expectations were, and to sort of set her on a path. I had recommended to her that when I was on the Charter Review Committee back in 1993, the committee felt very strongly and encouraged public input. And in that regard, we published ahead of time those sections of the charter we would be discussing on individual nights so that people could come when they were interested maybe in a particular topic. And I thought that, from my experience, had worked well. We've offered Sally whatever resources that she may need to staff the committee and to do some research and maybe be able to support the committee in a variety of ways that the committee will decide. Going through the list, from Precinct 1, we've selected Nova Somadai. From Precinct 2, Natalie Fiore. From Precinct 3, John Almeida. From Precinct 4, Mary Beth Very. From Precinct 5, Dan Gagnon. From Precinct 6, Vaughn Anderson. From Precinct 7, Noah Levitt. From Precinct 8, Michael Matchuk. And our at-large member is John Jaworski, who is from Precinct 2. I think both Dan and I felt that we wanted a diversity of experience in town government, which I think this represents, taking some newer folks into the fold to get as broad of a review and just different opinions being brought to the table as we could accomplish.
So thank you very much, Pat, for helping put that group together. And to the group, thank you for accepting the charge to sit on this committee, and we'll look forward to their work throughout the upcoming year. And board members, at this time, think about anything you may want this group to look at, and if you have any thoughts, please funnel them through me or to Ann Freitas to pass on to Sally Calhoun, please. Thank you very much, Pat. Appreciate the work.
Can I ask you
Sure.
a question? Hi, Pat. Thank you for all your hard work. How many applications or talent pool apps were submitted?
There were no talent pool
They weren't for
applications.
anything, you just
No.
selected them, people, okay.
We went through the list, people that we, I think it was important. This is the select board's warrant article.
Right.
And to me, it was important to meet with Dan to come to an agreement of who the committee members might be and not have me go off on a path that wasn't agreeable to your chair. So Dan and I met, compromised a few times, and that's what, but there were no applications submitted.
Okay, all right, thank you.
And the list was larger.
Okay.
In the event that somebody said no.
Right,
But
yeah,
I don't think anybody did that I'm aware of.
no. I think one individual declined.
Okay, so,
But that, and I will say, Dan has mentioned to board members to, through him, submit topics that you might be interested in. And I will say that occurred in 1993, that there were submissions through the chair of the board at that time of topics or sections of the charter that individual board members were interested in having examined. So,
and we'll ask the other boards and commissions to do the same. We'll ask their chairman to reach out.
right. And so in meeting with Sally, I think that's a very good chair, middle-of-the-road chair, used to hard work, and I think, if I'm not mistaken, they may already have their first meeting on the docket. They have 2 meetings on the docket. Okay.
Wonderful, thank you.
Any other comments, board members?
No, thank you.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you, Pat.
Thank you very much. Have a good evening.
You too. The board will hear an update from staff on 2024 Connors Farm events based on 2023 resident feedback. Mr. Town Manager?
Hey, Mr. Chairman, I'm going to invite Aaron Henry up to the microphone. These microphones are exceedingly loud tonight.
Yes,
I'm going to back up a little bit.
it's echoing.
We had hoped to have Mr. Connors or his attorney here tonight to have a conversation with the board. As everybody in Danvers knows, the farm is a busy place in the fall, lots of events, lots of people excited to be at the farm. And it's been a challenge the last couple of years to balance the desire from some of the abutting neighborhoods to have a reasonable end time to these events with the farm's desire to have well-attended events. And so we wanted to start a conversation with the board so that we can provide some guidance to Mr. Connors, so when he comes back, hopefully at the end of summer, to talk to us, he'll have an idea of what the board's expectations are.
Thank you, Steve. Aaron Henry, the town's director of, this mic's cold. Town's Director of Land Use and Community Services. As Mr. Bartha was describing, the last couple of years, we've had kind of a running conversation with Mr. Connor about the noise, stop times, and how to best balance his needs versus those of the abutters who hit us particularly hard last year. It was as soon as the Topsfield Fair ended, we started getting flooded with complaints, and I think the neighborhood seemed to be waiting to figure out if the noise was coming from Connors or if it was coming from the Topsfield Farm. As soon as the Topsfield Fair ended, we started getting hammered with complaints. We looked back in the files, and we had a handshake understanding with Mr. Connor back in probably 2018, 2019, about just a seasonal check-in on some of the activities that would be happening on the farm in any given season. And one of the things that we had agreed to in principle at that time was that he would seek an entertainment license before the select board. He pays for corn maze. These are all things that technically qualify for an entertainment license. So we touched base with him at the end of last season. Yep, we're going to get back on track and try to do that. We've since had a running conversation with his attorney on how to best approach that. We were hoping they would be here tonight. They could not make it, but we thought we would try to use this time as productively as possible. I think the real issue that's going to come to light as we engage with them on this will be the stop time. So I was hoping that this evening we could get a little bit of guidance from this board to inform Mr. Connor on what to do next. Procedurally, what we've agreed to in principle is him applying before the end of July for an entertainment license so that we can advertise that in sufficient time to the abutters and to the paper so that we could be on your August 13th, I think is the date, that meeting, and ideally at that point have at least, if not agreement, know where the disagreements are going to be at that time. And again, just through the casual conversations I've had with Attorney Flowers, I think it's going to be stop time. For that background, let's rewind to COVID when we had a brief experience with outdoor entertainment. In particular, we at that time permitted Breakaway out on Route 1 to have outdoor concerts a couple of times a week. Originally, the select board granted him an 11 o'clock stop time at Breakaway, and that was quickly ramped back to 10 p.m. maybe a month into it. I think he got maybe 4 or 5 shows off before that caused a problem, and we were back before your board to ratchet that back to 10 p.m. So I've informed Attorney Flowers through Mr. Connor through Attorney Flowers that that's our permitting history. Obviously, he's free to ask for whatever he wishes it to be. But at this time, I think it would be productive for us if we could inform him if that 10 p.m. is a real hard no-go past that for this board. I think it would be beneficial to all involved and make best use of our time if we could transmit that to him before he applies. But so it's kind of an open-ended question to you about what sort of guidance should staff be having, passing along to them as we go through with this process.
Maureen, your thoughts?
I think we have to give him ample time to come, and then we'll see him the end of July, you said, right?
August 13th.
Oh, August, I'm sorry.
The problem with August 13th is his activities start right after Labor Day. So he'll be, in theory, status quo if we don't wrap it up on August. And again, I totally appreciate we've been trying to have the time. We've been going back and forth on this since April, and they're unavailable this evening.
Unfortunately, we'll have to wait till August then to hear what he has to say. But you do have to sympathize with the neighbors, but it is great for the town. It is pretty fun, the corn maze and all that. He does run a pretty good business, but I'll wait for him to come before us, Dan. Thank you.
Thank you. Mike?
So tonight, were you looking to verify if the 10 o'clock was
I think it would just be
reasonable?
helpful if he knew that that was going to be a bone of contention on the 13th, that we can kind of focus our time and effort on that at that evening rather than dance around 4 things that aren't a big deal.
Yeah. It's a family event, right? It's pretty much family events that are held there?
As you get closer to Halloween, you get more
Right.
adulty. and they go later.
Right.
There's a haunted maze as you get closer to Halloween that kids aren't,
Right.
I guess they are allowed to be there, but at 11 o'clock at night, you don't see too many tots running around that place.
Yeah, okay. I thought I was going to give you an answer, but I don't think I will, because the haunted house thing is
Yeah.
kind of a late night thing.
Yeah.
And if I could summarize part of, just jumping, Mr. Henry alluded to it, but the residents who live in that area who would call town hall, call Aaron's office, call my office, to a person, they love the farm. Their complaint was, I have kids to put to bed and there's music blaring at 11 o'clock at night and that seems to be too late. And it was similar to what we experienced with the breakaway. The neighbors generally understood that they had a business to run, but they wanted there to be a balance between what is reasonable and what becomes difficult to put your children to bed at night. So it's not so much the events going past 10 p.m., it's the amplified music that bothered people past 10 p.m.
I think he kind of sits in a hollow too, so it just kind of, it just travels out from there, so it's kind of an unfortunate.
Could that be stipulated? Could the music be?
I think that's part of what the feedback, if we can provide some general feedback to Mr. Connors, it could be that the haunted maze goes, something could go past 10 p.m., but the board may say amplified music, or music has to be, there can be no loudspeakers after 10 p.m., something like that would be.
Yeah, I mean, that makes sense.
And ultimately, he can plan events now. The board will have a chance to offer direct guidance on the 13th. But I think what Mr. Henry is saying is if the board is going to say that 10 o'clock's a hard stop, letting him know that now will allow him to plan his events. If there's ambiguity, he'll plan his events and he'll still have to take direction from the board in August. But
I think that's the sort of productive thing that there's some wiggle room there perhaps, and that he can figure that out, and so that's very productive.
That would work.
Yeah.
All set, Mike?
Thank you.
Thank you. Dee?
Yeah, apologies here. I'm not quite sure what the ask is. So is it that we want to say no more music past 10 p.m.?
I don't have I apologize. I don't have a strong recommendation for you at this
Okay.
time. What I can tell you is the select board in the past has had a hard stop on outdoor audio and
Past 10
at
o'clock?
10 o'clock.
Okay. And speaking with his attorney, you have a sense that they may not be okay with the 10 o'clock stop. Is that fair to say?
He's a good attorney. He hasn't given anything away yet.
Okay.
He has said,
So we
thank you
don't
very
know.
much for the information.
Okay. The business now, does he have a stop time?
No.
So they can go 24/7 do they have a license to operate 24/7 because it's a private farm?
In theory, he has no hours of operation. It has nothing to do with the farm. It's just as a commercial activity. We don't generally regulate hours of operation with a few exceptions, but this one is not one of those exceptions. So we have no zoning control on hours of operation.
Okay. Do we have a noise ordinance for the town?
Do not.
But it's generally been accepted about 7 o'clock as far as work shuts down or whatnot, 7 p.m. Parties, I guess it
Yeah,
depends
I
on the
think
neighborhood.
state law might allow it to go a little bit later, or there's a state rule around noise that we try to follow at 7 a.m. I think it might run until 8 or
Yeah.
9.
Yeah, right.
But no, we do not have a noise bylaw.
Okay.
the topic's been raised, it hasn't been raised since 2014 when I started, but it has been raised in the past, and I believe the town meeting didn't have an appetite for a noise ordinance, but plenty of towns do have noise ordinances that regulate that.
Okay. And then the application for the entertainment license, what would that just be a vehicle for us to put a set time
Yep.
where you can have
Exactly. Yep.
entertainment?
Yep.
And we can stipulate what kind of entertainment we will allow past 10 o'clock.
Correct.
If everything stays the way it is, what recourse, like if he doesn't show up on the 13th, then what happens?
It's a great question. He will, I would assume he would continue to do what he's always done, and he will operate his business the way
And
he's
people
done.
would just complain,
I
there's
think,
nothing we can
right,
do about
I
it.
think there's an argument to be made, and I believe this, that I think he has a requirement to have an entertainment license in order to receive payment for, in exchange for going on the train, going through the maze, I mean, I think that is not an exempt activity. And he agreed to that in principle back in 2018, 2019.
But one was never issued or one was never requested.
Correct.
Well,
Where this gets complicated too is that agricultural enterprises have broad latitude in the Commonwealth to make a go of it. A farm like Connors is kind of a hybrid between a traditional farm and an agribusiness or an entertainment business. And I think towns and cities can get tripped up sometimes trying to distinguish between the two. If you have a restaurant and you want to have outdoor music, you have to come and get an entertainment license to do that. Farms in other places have argued that they don't need that because they're an agricultural entity and therefore exempt from those rules. That's where lawyers make their money, is in conversations like that. We're trying to have, because we have residents who have expressed concern about the noise, we have tried to engage with the attorney and with the farmer to have that conversation about reasonable accommodations. And as Mr. Henry said, our goal this spring was to have them before the board to have this conversation. Unfortunately, that hasn't worked out. We're hopeful, but certainly wouldn't promise you that we're going to see an application or a party here on the 13th, but at this point, that's the goal. And so we wanted to get a little bit of guidance before we...
did they at any time claim that they are not getting one because they are exempt? Do we think that could be
Mr.
the
Connor
reason?
has claimed that in the past. The current attorney has not cited that as an issue. And again, we've talked at length. Uses, I agree, uses are exempt. That is totally clear. He can have a train, he can have a corn maze,
Exactly.
he can have a pumpkin smash. All of that, I believe, is covered under his exemption. I think there are other laws that do apply to agriculture, and in my research, and I think I don't know how much Kathy has done on this, but I mean, we have examples of other towns issuing entertainment licenses for similar organizations in other communities. So again, and he agreed to it in principle a few years back. So we don't think we're asking for anything that's objectionable. As Steve said, I think what we're really just trying to do is come with some sort of understanding of what's reasonable given the situation, and that, and it's a short, sharp season for him, and I totally appreciate that, and we do. It's a terrible balancing act that, both sides might have to give a little bit in order to find something, but.
In principle, I'm okay with the 10 p.m. for the music only and not the other activities. But I also like to have our town council check that they are not exempt for the music.
Yep.
Thank you, then.
Thank you. So, a couple of things. One, we're talking school year. So I can understand why the parents are concerned with the music going beyond 10 o'clock on a school night. I assume he's open 7 days a week in season with these events. Is that safe to say?
Yes.
Thank you. Are we just focusing on Connor's Farm, or are we looking to do something town-wide on a stop on music at a certain time?
Well, I'm here to deal with just the Connor Farm problem only because this was an outgrowth of the conversation from the number of complaints we had at the end of last season, and that turned into a conversation that's been running along this whole time. I'm not aware of other outdoor audio issues. I know the planning board regularly limits outdoor audio as part of site plan approval for private.
So you lead a sheltered life, because there are 60-odd weddings at Glen Magna during the wedding season, which
Yep.
is May through the end of October. And they have music that goes till 10,
We've not.
10:30.
My office has not received a single noise complaint.
There have been, but that's beside the point. There are only 10 weddings in the next 2 years that are going till 11 o'clock. Most of them stop. My concern is, do we say to one entity, you have to stop at 10, but the others can do what they want? Are we
No, I
suggesting
think
that?
we should have a I'm all about consistency and uniformity. Again, like I said, in the COVID era, we had a 10 o'clock stop time.
Right, no, I understand, and breakaway,
Danvers Port has their Tuesday on the patio. I believe that's a 9 o'clock stop, and that's from the select board, if I'm not mistaken.
I don't think so, but I can't remember. So, I think what we need to consider, are we setting a policy townwide, or are we only dealing with Connor's Farm? So somebody has to answer that question. Steve, do you have any thoughts on that?
Certainly, entertainment licenses are one-offs in that not every location is the same. I mean, the board, if Danvers, we're only 13 and a half square miles, but you could imagine a downtown where there are no residents within earshot of something, and the board would want to be able to offer a different set of approvals to that entity. There's no precedent that would be set by the board acting on a specific entertainment license for the farm. That wouldn't apply automatically to the next applicant who came before the board. It's a much bigger project, but the town could have a conversation through town meeting about a noise ordinance that spells out all of this.
Which is a can of worms I don't want to open. I
Yeah.
want to just deal with music at a certain time of night.
Yeah, and I think, so we can review the question about exemptions with council. We can also check in with council on the broader question. But the licenses are set up, you're not bound, in issuing one license, you're not setting yourself up to be bound by that for the next license.
Okay.
These are individual applications with individual conditions applied to them.
And the problem with outdoor noise is you cannot contain it. It just, whichever way it's going to go, it's go. You can't put up walls and try to deflect it. It just does not work.
Right. Yep. I appreciate the feedback. I know there's not an easy path to find here, and that's in part why we were hoping to have kind of an ongoing conversation and broach that with you all this evening.
So for tonight's purpose, we'll deal with Connor's Farms and their music or bands or whatever it is that they have, and see if we can find a consensus of what time we would tell Mr. Henry to tell Mr. Connors that that's it. So I'm looking for a consensus. It can be 10, it can be 10:30, it can be 11, it could be 9.
Could it be,
During different days.
yeah, one time from
Weekends.
Sunday night to Thursday night, and Friday night and Saturday night be a separate time?
That's possible, yeah. But I think what Aaron is asking for is some guidance so he can tell Attorney Flowers, here's the deal.
Can I offer, as a third option there, it would also be perfectly acceptable for Aaron to go back and say, the board wants to hear from you, but you should be prepared for.
He should have been here tonight,
Agreed.
period. So he's not. So I think we're within our reason to set the boundaries tonight. Anybody want to take a stab at a time?
Yeah, I'll say I like my idea of setting a different time for the weekends, so 10 o'clock on weekdays and 11 o'clock on weekends.
Yeah, I agree with that.
I think that's reasonable.
Maureen?
I'd like to hear from the applicant, so I'm going to wait.
Okay. Mike, you agree with 10 and 11?
Yes.
And I am as well. So there's your consensus.
Much appreciated.
Okay. Then you have something you can discuss with them. Okay.
Exactly. Thank you very much.
No, thank you, Aaron. Appreciate it. A public hearing will be held to consider whether the license to sell alcoholic beverages held by Torito's Danvers LLC DBA Torito's Mexican Restaurant, Ramon Michel, manager, 10 Newberry Street, should be suspended, revoked, or limited in any way. Chief?
Good evening. A recap from the last meeting on April 22nd, 2024, at approximately 6:08 a.m. Officers responded to Torito's Restaurant at 10 Newbury Street, reported a motor vehicle accident where a vehicle struck the building. Investigation revealed from Sergeant Savage's conversation with the manager that the operator of the vehicle was an employee of the restaurant and was in fact drinking in the restaurant throughout the night after hours. Sergeant Savage is here today if you have any questions for him regarding his conversation with the manager. But the concern was that there was after-hour consumption of alcohol on property after closing time.
Thank you. Any questions for the chief? Mike?
This is a second offense, right?
There was an event March 7, 2023, and we suspended the license for a day.
Right.
That was stemmed from a compliance check where underage
Was served.
person came in and was served a beer without being identified by the bartender.
Okay, and it didn't go that good, though, did it?
Did not. There was actually, when the officers went in to talk to the manager, at first, there was a very friendly conversation about what had occurred, and
Yeah,
so.
thank you.
Also with questions?
Yes, thank
Thank
you,
you.
yeah.
Questions, Maureen?
So Chief, what's your recommendation?
Based on the fact this is the second incident in a little over a year, recommendation would be a 3-day suspension, 1 day to be served, 2 days to be held in abeyance for a year.
Any other questions?
No, that's it.
D, question?
No questions, thanks.
So, board members, we do have a liquor license guideline, page 6, I'll read. In matters of a second offense in a period of 24 months, the local licensing authority may consider the issuance of a suspension for a period of 3 to 14 days and/or consider whether a suspension, revocation, or any other action is warranted at that time. And I'll also read on page 13D, consumption of alcoholic beverages shall cease at closing time. All glasses, bottles, and receptacles shall be removed from the tables, bars, and patrons promptly at closing time. So we'll keep that in mind, and we'll ask the restaurant owner if he has anything to add or say at this time.
Hi, how you doing? My name is Ramon Michel. I'm the owner of the
Welcome.
Chorrito Mexican restaurant. And I'm here to plead, to talk to you that we don't serve alcohol after hours. I don't know how the officer got to know that we were serving alcohol after hours, because we not do that. We close 11 o'clock and that's it. Employees and everybody else had to be out of there by 12 o'clock after they finish cleaning. So I don't think it's fair that he say that my employee told him that he was drinking. He's here. He's the manager that was there when I called him at 6 o'clock in the morning. He showed up through the back door. The police don't even went to the building. They don't even know if we were drinking. So I don't think it's fair for you to suspend my license.
We haven't done anything yet, sir.
Okay, but I mean, he says something that's not right. It's not true. I mean, if he has cameras or if he has photos or something that he can show us, that's fine. But the employee that got hit the building, he was drinking outside. He was somewhere else. So that is not because I was serving alcohol to my employees. We have a very strict rule: no alcohol for my employees.
So I have here on the report, somebody had been redacted, had been drinking with another employee in the building all night and then attempted to leave the premises. Sergeant Savage, you want to make comment to that?
Yes.
Please,
So when I arrived there because the building was struck.
speak into the microphone.
Sorry.
It's okay.
I arrived there because the building was struck initially and to check the integrity of it to make sure there was nothing wrong. Spoke with Officer Waterman, who was the responding officer. He was told initially by the manager that they had been drinking inside. And they got out and then they subsequently hit the building. I was told the same thing, and I told the manager that when I basically, because I have to do it because I am an agent of the chief, to say, listen, I'm just letting you know it's a bylaw violation. I'm going to have to report it to the selectmen. So everything was out in the open that day. It was said to Officer Waterman, it was said to me. So that's what I can tell you from that day.
Thank you very much. Any questions, Mike?
Yes.
Please, either to the sergeant or to the owner.
To the owner. Sir, the vehicle involved was a manager's truck?
Yes.
And
The manager's
and another person was driving it?
I don't know how he got the truck. You know, I live in Rhode Island, so I got the phone call, and I saw the report. He went to court already. He had a hearing, and I asked him today. I said, "You were drinking here in the premises?" He says, "No." So,
Can I ask you, how many employees have you had over the years?
I mean,
Altogether, how many people have you employed over the years in whatever business?
right now I have about 400 employees in all my restaurants, okay? And this one over here, normally we run about 25 to 30 employees weekly. And I think, if I'm not mistaken, I got about 150 employees through the last 3 years.
Anybody ever lie to you?
Yeah.
Okay. Why should we not believe what the police told us?
Because the managers here are asking, he's been working for me for 30 years, and I don't think he's lied to me. I mean, because if he was lying to me, I will tell you, because I'm an honest person.
Right, but when the police are fresh on the scene, they're getting the information right then and there.
He's here. You can ask him if you want. He said he never mentioned that to them.
Okay, thank you.
D, any questions for the manager or the sergeant?
Yes, just a quick question for the sergeant or the chief. What time was the building struck about? Or when,
6 o'clock.
in the morning? Okay. And so and now this is for the owner, so they close at midnight, at 11, nobody.
We close 11 o'clock.
11 o'clock, everything is closed. So they stay overnight?
They say they stay overnight, but my record says nobody was there in the building.
Well, it seems like someone was there if they were leaving at 6 o'clock.
No, they called me. They called me, and I called the manager. The manager come in through the back door because he has a key to come in through the back door. When they called me for the second time, where's the manager? And I say, he's there. He was there, and I asked him. I called him back. I said, do you talk to the cops? He said, nobody's here. They're outside, but no, they don't ask me any questions. So then they called me back and said, when the manager, I think it was 2 calls, right? It was 2 calls.
They called the second time.
The second time, when I called back, he said, I'm here. So that's when I told the officer the Edgar was there.
Yeah, and I would say, I mean, I have sympathy for you, and, you know, that's, if I had my livelihood and my business, I don't want my license suspended. But in this specific case, I do believe that, you know, they were drinking on the side. I did talk about, and I don't know if this is appropriate, Mr. Chairman, on my role on the Board of Health, there seemed like there were also some violation on the health side.
Every restaurant has a valuation.
So,
That's not in our purview.
okay, thank you. Yeah, I do believe that there was some drinking that were happening, unfortunately. So,
I mean, I have a question for the officers. It's okay if I ask?
Sure.
You should have a, like, camera or
We don't have cameras.
so you see it's...
If they give us cameras, I'd be the first to put it on.
Yeah,
So,
yeah.
All right, thank you.
I think we need to, we need to do that.
Are you all set, D?
yeah, and I also say that the fact that there was a prior violation is also, within the past 24 months, is testament to the fact that the owner needs to do a better job with training and making sure that the employees do what they're supposed to do.
I'm
No further
pleading
questions.
not to do it. This is my livelihood. Right now, we have a bad economy. I've been in business for 30 years. And you can run my report myself. Never
Sir, we're
been
only
cited.
concerned with the incident that particular night. Thank you. Maureen, anything?
So my question to you is, when your manager locks up, doesn't he check to make sure that everybody's out of the building?
Mhm.
So
Yes.
he missed it?
They were outside. They were not inside. How they got
On
in?
the premises, though?
They don't have a key to get in.
I would think that, being a manager, I would want to look around, make sure everybody's gone.
We always do.
I don't like to do suspensions either, and I feel bad to say this too, but I need to support our chief and our officer on what their recommendation is, what they're saying.
Thank you. So,
He's the manager.
Go
He's not
ahead.
my partner.
yep,
Edgar Martinez. I manage a Torito restaurant. Been working with this guy for like 30 years. I don't drink. This guy, this is what happened. Javier, that's the cook. He lived with me. We've been living together for three years. It's how long we've been here in Boston. We come from Indianapolis. 3 days before this incident happened, it was his birthday. One of his friends come from Connecticut from another restaurant. He came over there about 8 o'clock at night. He waited for him. They went, I don't know where they went. I close the restaurant every night. I'm off on Thursdays. The only one that have keys is me, and I know the passcode for the alarm. Nobody else have it. Javier knows my truck has an extra spare keys in the glove compartment. He don't never drive, he don't draw. He was with his friend, they went out somewhere. They come back and I don't even know why they moved my truck. There's no reason for it. He don't even have a driver's license. He don't even know how to start a car. But it happens. I go every Monday, we do the order for Restaurant Depot. I go over there 5:30, 6 o'clock. I hired a lawyer because Javier been charged with DUI and driving with no license. So as I report in the paperwork of Javier, there is a black Volkswagen black car in the building, and the truck is right there also in the building around 2 o'clock. This is a recorder for the police that a truck driver called into the police. And the truck driver say, it's 6 o'clock. I was here 3 hours ago. So that could be 2 o'clock in the morning, 3 o'clock. I don't know when this happened, but my truck was in the building, and the other black car, which is Javier's friend, they were outside because they say the truck is parked right next to the building, against the building, and the Volkswagen, the black car, it has the lights on, so they were outside. And this happened about 2 o'clock in the morning, so I don't know how. I have it recorded right here in my phone if you guys want to hear.
no, thank you.
Did you tell them that?
I didn't talk to you, I don't know, or somebody.
At the
they were-
restaurant in the morning.
Yeah,
the man,
yes,
your truck.
yes,
Yeah.
you was asking for my truck, and I said, that's my truck. And you say,
And
what
ask
happened, and they must be drinking.
Excuse me, gentlemen, you have to address this board.
I'm sorry.
Thank
Sorry.
you. I'm going to ask the sergeant if he has anything else to add.
I don't.
Thank you, Sergeant. So, folks, the last time they were before us, they were here because the employees failed to accept responsibility for their actions. I'm kind of hearing the same thing tonight. They're refusing to take responsibility for the action that took place on the premises. I would be in favor of a 3 days suspension on this license. I would also be in favor of 3 days suspension and 4 in abeyance, given this is the second time. But I'd like to hear from Mike what your thoughts are.
I couldn't agree with you more. The first offense, I find offensive that your staff won't take responsibility when the police question them about it. But the laws are pretty simple. There's not a lot of pages in here. It's not hard to follow them. They're there for everybody's public safety. The second incident is also troubling. It says 3 to 14 days. I'd be willing to go 7 days so that we can just get this done and you people don't come back here again.
Dee?
Well, I will probably be a little more lenient. I always believe in we have to protect, promote, and prevent. I'll be leaning toward the chief recommendation, which will be 3-day suspension, 1 day serve, and 2 days to be held in the bay, with the stipulation that they do some training of the staff so that this doesn't happen again. I don't know if they have to redo their tip certification or whatever that will entail. Maybe the Board of Health can help us with what the nature of the training is going to be.
Can I say something? We certify everybody from the first time, and
So we're deliberating with that.
I mean, and I understand there might be, obviously the certification hasn't worked, so they need more training. And I think it'll be a very good thing that they redo all these trainings so that these do not happen again. So I'll be leaning toward the chief recommendation.
Thank you, Maureen.
I'm the same. I'm going to do 3-day suspension with more training.
3 days served.
Yes.
Thank you.
Wait, that's not what I said.
I don't, that's what she said?
Yep.
You said what you
Okay.
said. Mike said what he said. Now we've got to come to a meeting of the minds. So at this time, I'll take a motion.
I move that we give a 3-day suspension with 1 day serve and 2 days to be held in the bay.
Is there a second? Hearing none, I'll take another motion.
I move that we'll take 3 full days suspension and more training.
Is there a second?
Second.
Discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
Abstain.
Thank you. So you'll turn your license in for 3 days. To be served, we need to set a date for 3 days, and I'll ask the clerk what her calendar says.
I'm not sure if there's a particular days of the week that you're
Well-
looking to go, or whether you want to work with the.
Mike made the motion, we'll ask him what his thoughts on 3 days to be served.
I'd go Thursday, Friday, Saturday.
Thursday, Friday, Saturday.
Got a sting.
Yep. Thursday, Friday, Saturday, this week or next week?
I think a letter would have to go out.
Right,
to
so it'd be the
applicant.
week
So
after.
I would give them several weeks.
Several, no, we'll give him a couple.
Mr. Chairman?
Yes.
Just the fact that I wasn't on the vote, can I comment on the date of the suspension?
You can comment, sure.
Yeah,
please.
because is this something that we decide here, or do they work with the clerk?
No, we
to-
decide.
I mean, I think having a weekday, because they have most of their businesses on weekends. And I suppose, I don't know, I don't own
Yeah,
a
it is.
restaurant. But I think having something during the week with the training will be a strong message that we will not tolerate that again, so that they can save some of their bottom line and
After the
hopefully
4th?
learn from this. So I'll probably say Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday.
Yeah.
I'll second that, too. I agree.
What-
This is your livelihood. This is very serious, though, you know, but I'm going to agree with T, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, during the week.
To me, it's not relevant. It's the 3 days that are important. A weekend hurts more, but any 3 days, the week of July 14th would be fine with me. Mike, your thoughts?
I'll go with this, the 3 full days of what the other members suggested.
And you suggest, say it again, please.
Yes, I do suggest that we give them a 3 days, the week of July 14th, from Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday.
And I'll second it.
Are you normally open Monday, Tuesdays, Wednesdays?
Yes.
Okay, so that week you won't be. 14, 15, 16.
No, it's
Nope. What is it? I can't see.
Monday, the 15th.
15,
Monday.
16, 17.
So we need to come
Mr.
in.
Chairman, they will be open, but they are not serving alcohol.
they're closed.
Or they close the restaurant.
Yeah, we're gonna close.
Okay.
Do we need to turn the license, that
Yes.
Monday morning?
Chief, they need to turn the license in Monday morning, or
Okay,
you'll get a letter to that effect, sir.
thank you.
Any questions, clerk?
Did we take a vote on
Yeah.
that? Is it a unanimous vote?
It's
I missed that.
it was 3 yeses and an abstention, and on the dates, we're all in agreement.
Thank you.
And that was Dee's motion. Maureen seconded. Okay, gentlemen?
Thank you.
Okay. A public hearing will be held under Chapter 138 of the General Laws on the application of U.S. Sushi, Inc., DBA J&J Asian Cuisine and Lounge, 156 Andover Street, Shillong Hu, manager for a transfer of an all-alcoholic license at that location, license previously held by J&J. Is somebody here to speak to this?
Yes, good evening, Mr. Chairman, members of the board. My name is Attorney Russell Chin. I'm here on behalf of the applicant, U.S. Sushi, Inc.
Welcome.
Thank you. I'm joined by the manager of the restaurant. We're here before you with an application for a transfer of an all-alcoholic liquor license.
Paperwork in order?
The paperwork's in order, yes.
Thank you. Any changes at the restaurant?
We do not anticipate any changes.
All right, questions, Dee?
No questions, thank you.
Maureen?
No, how's the restaurant doing?
It's doing fine.
Good.
Thank you.
No,
We hope you come.
Wonderful. Nope, no other questions, thank you.
Mike?
No questions, thank you.
This is a public hearing. Anyone in the public have comment? Hearing none, can I have a motion to close public hearing?
Motion to close public hearing.
Is there a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
What's the will of the board?
I move that we accept the application as presented.
Second.
Discussion? Hearing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you for your time.
members of the board. Have a good evening.
Good luck.
Thank you.
You're welcome. A public hearing will be held on the application of Laser Max LLC, DBA Laser Max 139 Endicott Street, Suite 1, for a 7-day entertainment license to operate a laser tag facility to include 11 coin-operated amusement devices at that location. And introduce yourself, please.
Hi, my name's Philip Aldis. I'm one of the owners of Laser Max, and I have with me here Anna. She's the
Welcome.
manager of the what we hope to be the new Laser Max in Danvers. We both came from Laser Quest, and unfortunately Laser Quest closed due to COVID. And part of our business plan of Laser Max has been to reopen these Laser Quest locations. We have 6 other locations open at this time, and we're really excited about the opportunity to open Laser Max Danvers and bring back many of the Laser Quest employees that were working there before. And so we'd love your approval. What questions do you have?
All right, Mike.
I thought this was a psychology test, and I are funny figures, so. No questions. I'm glad you're doing business, and I think it's great. Thank you.
Dee?
Just a curious question. What is Laser Max? I'm sorry.
So Laser Quest was a laser tag facility, and Laser Max is still laser tag. So we have a large maze where players zap each other with laser beams. It's like a futuristic game of hide and seek and tag.
So it's like Laser Quest, but just
It's
bigger?
basically the exact same thing, except we now have the new Laser Max equipment.
Oh, I see.
And we do the exact same thing that Laser Quest did before.
Thank you. No questions.
Maureen?
And what are your hours of operation going to be? You said 7 days, right?
Yes, 7 days a week. We open at noon, most days, 10 a.m. on Saturday and Sunday. and we close at 9 p.m. on the weekdays and 11 p.m. on the weekends, Friday, Saturday.
I love it. That's awesome.
Thank you.
It's nice to bring it back.
Yeah,
Thank
we're
you.
excited.
Yeah.
And the paperwork's in order.
The paperwork's in order, yes.
This is a public hearing. Anyone in the public with questions? Hearing none, can I have a motion to close?
Motion to close it. Public hearing.
Is there a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye, thank you. What's the will of the board?
I move that we accept the application as presented.
Second.
Discussion? Hearing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye, opposed, none. Good luck.
Thank you very much.
I'm not sure I'll be there, but,
Well, you'd be surprised, you'd love it.
I'll be there.
all right, good, thank you.
Those grandkids. Yeah.
The board will consider an application for a one-day wine and malt and beverage license by William Langus, manager for a corporate outing on July 27, 2024, 3 to 7 p.m. in Endicott Park. Introduce yourself, please.
Hello, folks. My name is William Laganas. I'm actually the owner of Eastern Harvest Fine Foods and Catering. I've been catering and serving alcohol just under 20 years. I'm getting old. Originally out of Marblehead. Have extensive history with local one-day liquor license, and I've held the state liquor license for a couple of years. I had the concessions at Salem Municipal Golf Club, House of Seven Gables in Salem, East End Yacht Club in Marblehead, Wyndham Country Club. I currently currently have a Class A liquor license for the state of Maine, which I take anywhere in the state. We've never had a complaint, never had a reprimand of any sort in the 20 years I've been catering. Catering is the main source of the revenue. Once in a while, we do have a client who asks for a liquor license. We probably do, it's probably like 10% of our catering business. Cater to the mayor's inauguration in Lynn, 1,200 people. We do big events. Cater for all the movies and bands that come to Boston, everyone from Denzel to Pat Benatar. For this event, I was hired by Win Waste out of Saugus. It's a corporate event at Endicott Park. I will actually be there at this event. It's just for their employees. It's less than 100 people. We'll be serving just like I said, beer and wine. We will maintain the area for the beer and wine under a 10 by 10 tent, as well as the pavilion. Like I said, usually I have other crews go out, but I will be at that event all day. We're serving from 3:30 to 7 o'clock. My staff and I will arrive around 2:30 to set up, and we'll be out of there by 7:30. And I'm here to answer any questions, concerns you guys might have.
Thank you. Dee?
No questions. You answered all my questions in your presentation, so thank you.
Thank you. Mike?
No questions, thank you.
Maureen?
Nope, sounds good. You put on here 3 to 7. You just said 3:30 to 7?
I just read the contract just now. It's 3:30. I'm going to
Okay.
get there, like I said, 2:33, but
Yeah,
we won't be serving until 3:30.
Everybody's tip certified and everything and
Correct.
trained?
I am, and my staff is.
Yeah.
And we'll actually have an extra person on just for that because we're serving alcohol, which we always do.
Yeah, great presentation you put on. Thank you, that's great.
Oh, thank you.
Yeah.
I've been doing it a long time. I'm old.
Endicott Park, you'll love it. Have you ever had one there?
I'm sorry?
Have you ever had an event there?
No.
Oh, it's beautiful.
You know, I've done Topsail, I've done Turner Hill, I've done a bunch of places, but I haven't
I
done
can check off Endicott Park.
Yeah,
You're all
Endicott
set.
Park's
There you
right
go.
up
I
there.
can retire now, I hope.
Thank you. That's all.
What's the will of the board?
Move as presented.
Second, somebody?
Second.
Okay, any discussion? Hearing none, all in favor? Good luck.
Thank you,
for your
folks.
time.
Have a great summer.
Thank you.
Board will consider the application of David Panetti on behalf of Twisted Fate Brewing LLC for a one-day malt and wine license in Endicott Park, Saturday, September 21, 24, 9 a.m. to 4 p.m. for the Onion Town Field Day in conjunction with and to benefit the Friends of Endicott Park. Rain date, September 28. David, are you here? Yep. Please go to the microphone and say hello to the folks at home. Introduce yourself.
Good evening. My name is David Panett. I'm a owner of Twisted Fate Brewing here in Danvers, Mass. I'm here today to get a one-day license for the Onion Town Field Day event at Endicott Park.
Assume the paperwork's in order?
The paperwork's in order, yes.
Marvelous. Questions, Mike?
No questions, thank you.
Maureen?
David, nice to see you again. You're here
Thank
a
you.
lot.
You
No,
too.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Dee?
No questions, thank you.
What's the will of the board?
Move as presented.
Is there a second?
Second.
Discussion? Hearing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? None. Thank you for your time.
Thank you.
Good luck.
Have a good evening.
Board will hear a report by Town Engineer Stephen King on water and supply issues. Stephen, welcome.
While Stephen is setting up, water is a topic a lot of people are interested in Danvers. It is in some ways very complicated and in some ways not at all complicated. We thought tonight it would be helpful to have Stephen, who's very involved with operations as well as the permitting and the registration that the town holds, to provide a sort of a high-level overview of how the pieces fit together in terms of the regulations, the permit, capacity, trend, what we know is coming, the restrictions that are seasonal that everybody loves, how those come to be, and then to take questions from the board. As an interesting factoid, the town our current permit expired before I started in Danvers in 2014. We were waiting for a draft permit when I got here. Right around the time Stephen King started, he was asked to complete an order to complete, which is a series of questions from DEP related to the issuance of our permit. That was years ago. We're still waiting for a response to that. It sounds like we may get our new permit from the state in 2026 or 2027, and that permit in theory will expire in 2029, and we'll have the pleasure of starting the process all over again. So we are regulated by the DEP, and I'm going to turn it over to, I've run out of time here, so Stephen's going to take it from here, and then I'll add as we go, but we'll both look forward to taking questions at the end.
Welcome, Stephen.
Yeah, thank you, and thank you, Steve, for buying me some time while I was getting that set up. Appreciate it. My name's Stephen King. I'm the town engineer for the Department of Public Works for Danvers. Good evening, everyone, and thank you, board, for allowing me to discuss and present our water supply with you tonight. If it's cool through you, Mr. Chair, I did kind of set up a little bit different presentation where it's a little bit interactive. So if people wanted to kind of join in through their phones, I have a few interactive questions that I'd like to ask to the audience. If they want to respond, they can respond through their phones. They don't have to talk or anything. Just kind of get them into what some of our water supply does and have a better understanding of it, if that's okay with you.
Sure.
Okay. So tonight I want to discuss the water supply. This is obviously a beautiful drone picture of our Middleton Pond Reservoir located in Middleton. Just down to the lower corner is our water treatment plant, the Vernon C. Russell Water Treatment Plant. I'm going through menti.com, so if you did want to choose or follow along on the presentation instead of turning around looking at the chair, you could scan the QR code or punch in the code and allow you to log into the presentation as well.
I see two phones out.
Can we do that too?
I'm not going to leave you
Great.
hanging, Steve. I'll jump in here.
You do get in, just give me a little
Mr.
thumbs
Henry,
up.
You can.
Sam a day.
Do that, right? Okay.
Yes. And Wally, okay,
Open your
there you
camera
go.
and snap a
Oh, you
picture
do
of
it, yeah.
that, and you'll be able to participate. Depends on how you answer.
Yeah, so I got a few people logged in. That's great. So we'll keep going. Some of the topics I'm going to talk about tonight. Just want to discuss the overall history briefly of the Danvers Water Division Department, some of our daily use activities, some of the annual statistics that we track each year for the Mass DEP. Talk about a little about where we're located in the watershed basins in Essex County. We'll go through what permits and registrations are, how we're allowed to withdraw the water from our water sources, and just talk briefly about capacity and summarizing our look ahead at our future water supplies. So our first question for everyone is, on average, how many gallons of water is treated, or we call filtered, at the Danvers Water Treatment Plant per year? We have 100 million gallons, 1 billion gallons, or 10 billion gallons.
What do we get if we get it right?
You get free water for a year.
And what if
No,
I
you
get it
don't.
wrong?
1 billion?
So if you answered 1 billion, you are correct. On average, it's about 1 billion gallons per year that's treated through our water treatment plant. So we were originally founded through the Acts of 1874, Chapter 191, which formed the Danvers Water Department. That also secured our water supply sources, which are located on the satellite map. We have Swan Pond, that's located in North Reading. We have the Middleton Pond Reservoir, which is also located in Middleton. And then we have the Emerson Brook Reservoir, which is our third water supply source. So these are our 3 surface water supply sources that were formed and protected through the Acts, Massachusetts Act of 1874, and then through future years amended and changed throughout the years. But these are our primary drinking water sources that we use, and we draw everything in from Swan Pond and Emerson Brook into our Middleton Pond Reservoir, which then goes into our treatment plant. On average, we supply 3.32 million gallons of water each day to the community of Middleton and Danvers. We're regulated under our registration, which allows us to withdraw 3.14 million gallons per day. And then also we are additional withdrawal. We have a Massachusetts Water Management Act permit. The permit gives an additional 0.58 MGD, million gallons per day, to our registration. So that allows us to be able to withdraw an additional amount of water under certain constrictions or restrictions throughout the year. As far as our assets are concerned, what we're involved in, we have over 10,000 service connections in the community of Danvers. Over 120 miles of distribution piping that goes from the plant all the way out to the end of the Beverly Topsfield lines. So a lot of miles of water main that, as I've used to know, we're currently working on Locust Street, and the work we've done on Hobart Street, that's part of that 120 miles. We have 2 groundwater supply wells, so we're also a groundwater well supply community. So we draw water from the Ipswich River Basin, which is located shortly down Route 114 on Andover Street. So we have 2 wells there that draw directly from groundwater. We have 2 storage tanks. I'm sure you've probably seen them if you've been up in Danvers. We have the Folly Hill water storage tank. That's roughly about 4 to 4.5 million gallons of storage. And then we also have the underground State Hospital tank, which is a 5.4 million gallon storage tank located by the old Danvers State Hospital. And then if you haven't been to our plant, I'm afraid to give you guys to definitely take a tour if you haven't yet. But here's a few pictures of inside our facility. We have some of our chemical bays, our sand and carbon filters, and also our state certified lab. So we're a state certified lab. We're allowed to do all our testing for water quality all in-house. Anything that's beyond our lab, we usually we do sub out, but mostly we have a lab chemist, certified lab chemist that's licensed through the state and our state laboratories, so we're able to do a lot of testing in-house for our water supply. It's the great benefit for our town. We're also obviously regulated under the Safe Drinking Water Act of 1974, so everything we do is under those certain regulations, which is set through the EPA, which sets the standards for any potential contaminants and regulations there too. Next question for everyone. Danvers is located in which watershed supply basin? The Ipswich River, the North Coastal, or Ipswich River and North Coastal? And if you answered Ipswich River and North Coastal, you are correct. Here's a graphic of the Ipswich River watershed.
Looks like Europe.
It's roughly 155 square mile basin with 22 communities located within it. If you can see the red box up here highlighted, that's Danvers. Primarily all of Danvers is located in the North Coastal Basin, but we do have a little stretch of the area that's in the Ipswich River Basin. Ultimately, all of our water supplies are located in the Ipswich River Basin, so that's how we're tied in with the Ipswich River Watershed Association and the other River Alliance communities, and that's how we're permitted through that Ipswich River Basin. So everything that is tied and connected as far as any studies or evaluations of this basin, Danvers is a part of, even though we're in the North Coastal Basin. There's also, among the 22 communities, only 14 that are actually in the Ipswich River watershed have permits or registrations. On the next page, we'll show you some of those. So we have registration and permits. That includes Danvers and Middleton, Hamilton, Salem and Beverly Water Supply, and Topsfield. We both have registrations and permits. Registration only is some of the other towns: Ipswich, Lynn, Linfield, Peabody, North Reading, Wenham and Wilmington. And then we have other towns that are associated with it, but outside the Ipswich River Basin: Andover, Billerica, Georgetown, North Andover, Boxford, Burlington. So overall, 8 public water supplies hold registrations. 4 of them have water registrations and permits. The Ipswich River Basin roughly holds 160,000 people within it, but it serves over 330,000 people. So it's a wide spanning community. There we go. Next is kind of a graphic that I thought is interesting. It kind of breaks down all the communities that are tied in between registration and permits, with their surface water or groundwater supply, and then what their total allowable withdrawal limit is. As you see, Danvers is roughly 12% of the total allotment. So Mass DEP did an original study. They determined that the safe yield of the actual Ipswich River Basin is about 29.4 million gallons per day. We're allowed to draw over that. So we're registered and permitted for over that right now. So we have roughly, if you added everything up, you come to about 32.5 million gallons per day allowable to withdraw from the basin. But they have the safe yield set at 29.4 million gallons per day. Obviously, Salem Beverly has the largest supply because they're supplying 2 of the largest cities in town. Next to us at the 12% range is Peabody. And then the other communities slowly tie in and take small chunks off their registrations and their permits. And specific to Danvers, because we do have a permit for the additional 0.58 MGD. So because we have that permit, there are additional restrictions and conditions that we're required to maintain as part of our community and our water supply. So I'm sure you're all familiar with the graphic on the left. That's our drought level conditions that we put out. Hopefully everyone has a magnet at home so they can keep track of what's going on. So here are some of our metrics that we're required to follow. We have to maintain a 65 residential gallons per capita per day. So at the end of the day, when we've treated the billion gallons of water through our water treatment plant, that billion gallons of water has to go through the meters of everybody's homes. When we average that out between the population and what's used, we have to come out to 65 gallons per capita per day or less. Anything else is would be an infraction of our water permit. We also have what is called a summer use restriction. So that is very unique to Danvers. Summer use restriction occurs, which is we're in it right now, May 1st to September 30th. We are capped on the amount of water that we're allowed to withdraw based on our permit in that time frame from May 1st to September 30th. That total amount is 587.52, specific 0.52 million gallons over that course of that year. So that's why we're automatically dropped into level 2, so we can maintain that million gallon withdrawal. We're also required to monitor the gauges that are in the Ipswich River. So as the gauges change in flow because of heights or cubic feet per second or volume ratio, volumetric flow rate, we're required to either operate our wells or shut them off. So if it drops below a certain CFS, that's cubic feet per second, our wells are shut off. We also have to control the unaccounted for water. So again, based on the billion gallons of water that we treat through our water treatment plant, we're allowed to only have a percentage of 10% or less of unaccounted for water. So that means things that we cannot account for over the course of the year. So when we do our hydrant flushing, we're actually measuring the volume of water that we're using. If we're allowing, if we have a certain fire, we track that amount of water. If we have certain leaks that we know about, we track that water. Anything that's used for demolition, if they're spraying down houses for dust control, or any of the projects that we use during a water main construction or sewer rehab, any water that's used, we have to track it. And at the end of the day, when we submit our annual statistical report, we're required to be 10% or less of that billion gallons. We're also required to implement a minimization and drought management plan. So we currently have our drought management plan, We follow that on a weekly basis, so we're tracking precipitation over the course of the month, our reservoir elevation levels, and then also the stream flow triggers. So that guides us on how we're supposed to set our drought level 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, or 6 on a weekly basis throughout the summer and the course of the year. And also the last part of the permit conditions, which have been expanded recently, are mitigation activities. So we're required to promote inflow and infiltration. So, I'm sure I've talked to the board a few times when we're doing the sewer rehab projects. So we're trying to promote more groundwater infiltration into the ground and not into our sewer pipes. So that's why we're also doing those projects where we're relining and rehabbing our sewer main, so water goes into the ground, not into our sewer. Same thing with stormwater recharge. A lot of our new regulations in our stormwater management plan requires certain developments to put in more infiltrators and to capture root runoff and put it back into the ground versus sending it out to the ocean and down the rivers. So we're also required to implement that more on development. We also have talked about briefly, some of the board members here, about land protection and habitat restoration, as far as protecting land for water supply sources in the future. The next graphic or slide kind of just shows where we average out annually. As I said before, we're around 3.32. You see the bar graph from 2008 to 2022. The orange line above is our withdrawal limit, what we're allowed to withdraw. So as you can see, we had one blip in 2010, but beyond that, we've been well below the line. So basically, we've been able to keep up with what our registration is and not really have to go into what our permit is.
Steve, is there a danger that they'll lower the amount to hit our average?
The lower is better. Higher is not what we want to get.
We're allowed to take so much. Is that
the orange line is what we're allowed to take.
Right. And because we're not taking it, will they reduce our allowance?
No, they wouldn't reduce our allowance.
Okay.
Yeah. That was pretty much has been written into the permit because of the addition of both Danvers and Middleton. So as development, they have a projection of, they have a chart of projected growth, population growth, and that is built into the buffer that we have. But as you see, as we're developing, we still have, as much development is going on right now, we still have room and capacity within our own system.
A quick question to you, Mr.
Go
Chairman.
ahead. Yep.
So, how often do we get these? Is it a once a year analysis?
We track this on a monthly basis.
So this is on
almost on a, yeah, sorry. We track it on a daily basis. I usually get the reports from our plant on usually a monthly or quarterly basis of where we're trending over the course of the year.
Okay. And to Dan's point, the fact that we're lower, and if we at level 5, for example, do we soften that so we can get closer to the orange line so people can use more water, or?
Well, this is where we're averaging, but again, in the summertime is a little bit different because we're capped, right? So we've sometimes have gotten close up to our cap in the summertime between May 1st and September 30th. So that is a balance that we have to work through of our peak use season during the summertime and then our off-peak season during like the late fall and the early winter time.
Okay, I see.
Can I ask a question? Is that okay?
Yeah, go ahead.
Steve, can you tell me, based on the amount of residents or homes we have now, are you able to project how many more homes we could have before we cap out?
That's a tough question to answer today. We have done analysis as part of our minimization plan of looking at what we need based on population projections, and these are just forecasts and not exact numbers of what we need in order to be able to maintain our water supply and provide water to the communities. We know that we can handle that within our own permit. We don't think we're going to need that in the next 20 to 30 years. But beyond that, we're also looking at part of our minimization plan is to looking at interconnections between other communities in case we did need that water. I don't think we're ever going to get to that point in the next 30 to 50 years, but that's something we are studying and evaluating over the course of these, like right now.
So if there's an average rate of growth in the town, and maybe the town manager, you would know that answer, if there's an average rate of growth per year in town, when would we cap out on this, according to that?
Yeah,
chart?
so, I mean, our growth in Danvers is quite honestly less than 1% per year. I mean, we have a much lower growth rate than a lot of the communities around us. Even, the project downtown feels like rapid growth. It's going to be a blip, to be perfectly honest. So the modeling that Stephen is describing, when we work with the DEP, we're assuming rates of growth. And as the town engineer said, we're probably 30 years out from having real issues with that, which is why, if you go back 30 years, the town acquired land, I believe in Topsfield, Middleton, for an additional reservoir. We were going to go through the process to get that permitted to build more storage. That stalled out years and years ago, but Senator Bruce Tarr has convened a water task force on the North Shore to start having the conversations, not about what to be prepared for in 10 years, but what to be prepared for in 40 years. The last 2 years are a good example within our system of kind of the year-to-year volatility that you can see. So 2 summers ago, we were within 2 or 3 weeks of a real issue where we were going to have to wheel water in because we had a drought and the reservoir dipped. Last summer, we had water spilling over the walls at the reservoir, and it was just kind of escaping back into the basin. Stephen oversaw a really detailed grant project probably 4 or 5 years ago now, where we looked at the hydrology in the Ipswich Basin. And what we learned, what we wish the DEP had been more interested in talking about, is the fact that something like 85 or 90% of the water that passes through this basin either evaporates or flows out to the ocean. And Bill Clark used to say, we don't have a supply issue in Danvers, we have a storage issue in Danvers, that there's ample water here throughout the year to meet needs for generations to come if we were smarter about capturing it when it was passing through. So I think that's a very long answer to a very direct question, which is that we have all of the capacity we need for the next several decades based on trends today. We do need to be planning, and Stephen, as you allude to, we are talking about with our legislators, with our fellow water supply systems, with the Mass Waterworks Association. The MWRA is out there as a long-term option for the town to look at. So when the time comes, we'll figure that out, and so we do. But in the short term, we have all the capacity we need for growth that we're seeing now and into the near future.
And I think a lot of the other, just to piggyback on that, a lot of the programs that we've started to implement for water conservation has really shown to take its course between our water use mitigation program for new development, offering rebates back to customers for high efficiency type washers, sinks, shower faucets, rain barrel programs, trying to implement more of those conserving water measures, and obviously working through irrigation systems. We don't allow irrigation systems on commercial properties anymore. So yeah, we've worked through that. I think we're kind of checking a lot of boxes, and we're trying to do all the things we can to try and conserve as much water and then recharge our supply here in the Ipswich River Basin that we can.
Can I do it again? Another one of these questions?
Sure.
If we maxed out on the proposed building that the planning for the center of the town with, according to the MBTA law, can we supply water to all those residents if it's approximately 15 families per acre?
I don't know if you want to take that.
Yeah, I mean, I would just want to respond to that. I mean, obviously that's a very detailed type of trying to get a response, but at the same time, each development has to look at. We have to look at each development in both communities, both Danvers and Middleton. And with each one that we're doing now, we're assessing the amount of water that they're actually going to use. So we're starting to track that at a much higher rate. So when you have developments or multifamilies or mixed-use commercial, residential, we have a better understanding of how much water they're actually going to use. Some of the few developments that we've seen, even though it seemed like there's a lot of units in there, with the high high conserving cost measures of some of the units that they put in, some of the materials and appliances they put in there, it's really not a big overall change. I would think that something that the size of Maple Square would be a huge, that's going to draw millions of gallons per day, but it ends up being not the case. They're probably less than 100,000 gallons based on the cubic foot. So they're very small, minute type of changes in those type of developments. Even though they look big and they look like they're going to be big water users, they don't end up being that big. I don't know if that answers your specific question about it's like a yes or no question, but
It was
definitely circle back to you and get that
question.
to you. Yeah.
That was a good answer.
Great answer.
Continue, please.
Thank you.
And just talking about some of the next steps, there's a lot of things in the works. As Steve mentioned, North Shore Tax Resiliency is currently working on trying to make sure that every community in the Ipswich River Basin has an opportunity to be able to supply their residents with water. So there's a lot of further evaluations going on between interconnections and, shuffling of water between different communities. We're always on, regulations are constantly changing. So permits and registrations are both alike, are now more regulated by Mass DEP. So before, registrations were almost historically allowed to withdraw whatever they wanted, but now those registrations, the new registration that just came out for each town, is tied back into the Mass State Drought Regency Planning. So if Massachusetts declares a drought, even if you have a registration, you have to enact certain drought measures, even if you don't have a permit. Before, registration could withdraw as much as they want without any level of drought conditions to implement in each town. Now they have to when they get the new registration. We're also considering a lot of we've talked about the new emerging contaminants, which it's always in the news. For example, PFAS and PFOA. We know we have those in our water supply for groundwater wells. But we also know we're also working on certain measures to make sure we can eradicate that from our drinking water. So we're working on that as well. Large grant fundings, constantly being put into the Clean Water State Revolving Fund. So we're looking and evaluating those options for the town. But we also have our surface water supply has no issues. We know for a fact that our filtration train, works to take out PFAS, so we know that hasn't been an issue for us. Again, we have large-scale infrastructure projects. Those are both over the rehab pipes that are in utility water mains that are over 100 years old, and cut down on the amount of breaks that we've had each year. So some of the streets that we've been tackling over the past 5 to 10 years are streets that have at least 20 to 25 breaks on them over the past decade. So obviously, if we're able to take those out, we create better flow throughout our community. We're upsizing those pipes, and we're also cutting down on the amount of overtime required by our water department to go out there and fix any of the breaks and leaks that occur at night. We've also been using, our water division also started carrying a new technology to help track and locate leaks, kind of using a signalized radar device on hydrants. So that's very intriguing that it's able to capture certain harmonic frequencies within a pipe to tell whether or not a pipe is leaking somewhere.
Can you use that at Endicott Gardens to find the leak?
As long as
The water up there.
As long as we have 3 surface areas that we connect onto the pipe, it triangulates where the loudest.
You got a young lady up there digging it by hand to find the water leaks by the shed. And there's no water for the gardens.
Did I know that?
Well, you know it now.
I know.
I hope somebody will do something about it.
Yep. That's Endicott Park?
Gardens.
Endicott Gardens.
The gardens,
The gardens.
they need to be watered this time of year.
Okay. And then we're obviously currently evaluating what this does for all these projects to our ratepayers. We obviously have them in mind. All this cost, any change in the regulations, any change in the acts, any change in the state laws, had to get pushed down to our ratepayers. So we have to make sure we try and cover them so they're not overly burdened on any increase in rates while we're doing all these projects. And just want to say thank you for the time. I appreciate it. And I will take any questions.
Thank you very much. Question for my fellow board members. Any interest in a tour of the water treatment plant?
Yes.
Perhaps Steve, your office can arrange that, have somebody take them up there. it's really fascinating that take the tour. So they'll take care of that for the summer sometime. Thank you.
Yeah, that'd be great.
Any other questions for Stephen? Stephen, thank you very much.
I had a question.
Yep, sure, go ahead.
Stephen, great presentation, wow.
Thank you.
It's like, you did a really good job. Question about the Ipswich River with the wells. Is there a well that is being worked on or damaged or something recently? A resident was asking me.
We have two wells. One well has been off
Okay.
since 2018. We did the initial testing through the UCMR4, which is required testing, which found the PFAS levels were higher than what was allowed at the EPA allowable limit. So that's been shut off. We also have, that's well one. That's the one if you drive right over the 114 bridge right before you get to Market Basket in Middleton, it's right on your right.
Mm-hmm.
We have our other green sand filtration well plant. That's on Buxton Road. That's right as you come right past LaBelle's Grove in that area. That one is currently also off for maintenance, but it's also off because of the river flow is so low as well.
Okay, so it's being they're being fixed?
Yeah.
Okay, all right, thank you.
All set? Questions in the audience? Please, yep. That's the drill.
Nova Salmon Town Meeting Member, Precinct 1. I just had a few questions through you. Where do the communities in the North Coastal Water Basin get their water? Like, we're basically totally in that, but we get it from Ipswich River?
So if you can see, I don't want to block your view. Obviously, Beverly, Salem, Peabody, we're all on the edge of the Ipswich River, so we're all pulling from the Ipswich River Basin, which they're all in the North Coastal. Essex is also in the North Coastal. They're mostly on wells. The towns north of us, besides we have Georgetown, parts of Ipswich, Raleigh, they draw from the Parker River watershed. And then towns to the west of us and Andover draw from Shawsheen.
And I would, just as an add-on to that, we did, years ago, we partnered with the Danvers Alarm List to do some exploratory wells at the Rebecca Nurse Homestead. One of the challenges in the North Coastal Basin, if you think about the development patterns there going back centuries, you have to have a pretty wide radius of undisturbed land to get a municipal water source. So if you think about Danvers sort of from the line south, it's mostly developed, it's commercial. It would be really difficult to find a parcel large enough that is undeveloped that meets the setbacks and requirements for the DP. So there may be water underground, but in this area right here, you'd never find the setbacks to be able to do that. So we did have a chance to do the well testing at Rebecca Nurse, but the results weren't adequate for a new source.
So if you look just underneath the red box here, it's hard to read on this graphic, but the dark green is basically what's called a high yield aquifer, and that's pretty much where Rebecca Nurse sits. So that's where we went and looked and researched that area. But again, those aquifers it's not exact science, so there are still other options that we should look at in the future as well.
Will the removal of the dams along the Ipswich River make any difference?
You've been following Ipswich politics, apparently, yeah.
So I guess the question is removal of the dams in Ipswich, or just all the dams?
Along Ipswich, aren't there more that are being removed along Ipswich River, not just along Ipswich?
That's a good question. I'm not sure. I haven't heard of it.
I think there are, but I don't know.
There are.
There's at least one of them.
We've done a few. We did one dam removal right before I started, Curtis Pond Dam, which was removed. We realized there would be no effect on our surface water supply. But again, it's something that has to get studied a little bit in more detail to be able to understand the effects of that, both environmentally, ecologically, and on the drinking water supply side.
And one more question. So you mentioned that the commercial, we don't allow irrigation for commercial properties anymore. Are those properties grandfathered in, or if a new business goes in, can we have them not use it or remove it? Or is it the land itself is, if it's got irrigation at this point, it can keep it?
If it's new and being redeveloped,
If a car dealership currently has it and they close out and a new business goes in there, can we say to that new business, you can't use irrigation?
Correct, yeah, we have that in our regulations.
Okay,
Yep.
Thank you. Anybody else? Bill?
Bill Bradstreet, Town Meeting Member, Precinct 1. I have two series of questions, or one question in the series. Is it when the Ipswich River flow drops down, that's when we cut into the wells, or use the wells to supplement? No? I could have easily misunderstood.
When the Ipswich River flow decreases, we have to turn the wells off.
Oh, okay. Stand corrected. If we don't draw a limit, what happens with the water? Do we get compensated? Is it put in a bank, or? You showed a graph that we could draw up to a certain amount. We don't draw up to that amount. What happens to the amount that we're not using? I mean, can we save it, put it in the bank, or what?
So I think Steve has kind of alluded to this, and I would too. I would love to be able to store what we don't use. Yes. But unfortunately, because of environmental factors of evapotranspiration, some of it does decrease. But again, if we don't use it, I think it's better. We don't really lose it. It stays in storage at our surface water. So we don't want to. It will eventually evaporate. It does refill, but again, it doesn't go into somewhere else that we can pull from it later.
And Bill, I would say too, I mean, if you think just doing rough math, if you look at that chart, on average, we're leaving we have permission to use 18% more water on average than we do every year. The revenue that we generate is literally the cubic feet of water that we sell. So Stephen mentioned a summer cap. We've had discussions with the DP about the fact that by virtue of setting that cap where they do, it's statistically impossible for us to sell all of the water that we have a right to sell through our registration and our permit. Right. And those are dollars that don't make their way back into the Water Enterprise Fund, which would provide relief to the ratepayers. So we are limited in what we can sell through our permit process, through SWMI, through the regulations that are promulgated by the state. And at the same time, we're facing ever-changing and enhanced regulations in terms of how we operate the treatment plant, the technology we use in the treatment plant. PFAS is going to be a considerable expense, not just for Danvers, but for most water suppliers. So we have pressure from both sides on these rates. And I think that's, to be blunt, has been one of the more frustrating parts of having this discussion for the past 8 to 10 years with the state, is that they think that the rates are the solution to these problems. And we would encourage them to come and spend some time in the communities and hear how people feel about being faced with considerable rate increases when we're selling less water than people are asking for. And again, in our view, it's not a capacity issue. Last summer is a good example. We could have sold a lot more water last summer, but the state has a say in how much we can sell and when we sell it.
Along the water supply issue, I know of someone in Beverly. We're restricted. I drive over to Beverly and I see people watering their lawns all over the place. You probably explained it, but again, how do they get away with doing that when we can't do that here?
I'll answer this question a little less delicately than I know Stephen would. The town made a strategic decision probably 20 years ago to negotiate regulations with the state as part of the SWMI SWMI regulation process. Beverly Salem, as an alternative, chose to litigate. On paper, they're still litigating that 20 years later, and we enjoy all of the restrictions associated with those regulations, and they do not. And it's, I was on a call Monday. I serve on the Water Management Act Advisory Committee. I serve at the pleasure of the Mass Municipal Association on that committee. And one of the things that is most frustrating from the water supplier's perspective is that you can drive through a county and have 3 or 4 different sets of regulations applying to the people who are pulling water out of the same watershed. And the argument we've made is that if we're considering the basin as a call it a water, it's a water budget. You assume all of the water that passes through a basin is a budget of water that you have. it would be logical for the state to be making decisions about restrictions and conservation based on aggregate usage across all suppliers operating within that basin, rather than one set of restrictions for this supplier and a different set of restrictions for that supplier. And when a town like North Andover completely pulls out of the basin and joins Andover in MWRA, that the budget of the water they're using from that budget be reallocated or at least contemplated as part of the analysis. None of that happens. So our permit is, in our view, treated, and I hope the DEP is not watching the meeting tonight, because I'm sure they would disagree with some of what I'm saying, but there's no consistency in the way that this is done. So, we work very closely with the MWWA, which represents water suppliers in the state. One of the things that their director has said quite candidly is that the groups that are seeking to restrict water systems, this is all that they do. The Ipswich River Watershed Association, they have attorneys, they have an executive director, they spend all of their time contemplating these regulations and how to ensure that they stay in place, whereas Stephen King, Jason McCarthy, and the people who are running our system have 50,000 other things that they're doing, and then they have to persuade managers and mayors to pay attention to this topic for more than 5 minutes at a time because it's complicated. So it's frustrating, and it's difficult, and it's inconsistent. I'm sorry, that was another very long answer to a very direct question.
It gives more information for not only me, but us to digest. You said part of this is under litigation.
We're not under litigation.
No, but if it's litigated, is there a restriction? They can litigate it for 100 years, 2 years?
So one of the things that we expect, and I'll yield to Stephen because he'll probably correct what I'm about to say, but the state is looking at applying certain restrictions against registered amounts. Right now, the restrictions that we enjoy are because we have a permit, but that the state is aware of that, what you're describing. So I would think logically, no, you couldn't litigate for centuries on end. But I will say 20 years in, it is a long time.
Historically, their registration was more adapt to their being an urban area and on giving them more of a benefit of water usage or water budget. So they're able to continue to use everything underneath their registration without being sanctioned or having to deal with having their permit used on them. So unlike us, we're very close. You can see we get close to the line. We're at 3.14 with our registration, but sometimes we do go up above that a little bit. So that permit is what gives us the restrictions of why we had to change into our level drought restrictions. Versus Salem Beverly, let's say if they were at 3.4 for their community, they're only putting up 2.5 MGD per day. So they have this buffer to be able to say, you can keep water and we're still using our registration. They can't restrict or put rules on our registration.
If you have an act that says we don't use, and you have a period where we do use, can't we get included in the act there so we're not penalized or it doesn't appear quite so?
I think what we would love to, what Steve has kind of said is back to the kind of the pie chart. Here's a budget. If people are pulling out or not using a certain amount of water, does that give another community to be able to say, we can use that water?
In other words,
And we'd like to be generous.
I think we're losing everybody at home.
Well, just in a sentence, what I'd say is look, this chart's a good illustration. If some of the suppliers on that chart are heavily restricted and some are unrestricted, it seems logical that we could say to the DP, how about a set of light restrictions that apply to all suppliers, which will get you to the same place as overly restrictive rules on some and no restrictions on others. We're candidly years away from getting there, but I think that illustrates the point.
You've had your three. Thank you.
I had one last one, and it was brought by the town managers.
I've got to take a break. We're going to recess for 5 minutes, and I don't want Stephen to wait around.
No, it's not for him, it's for him.
Well, he'll be here after the meeting.
You can ask me offline, Bill. I'll answer your question.
I will.
Good, thank you.
Thank you, Stephen.
Thank you, Steve.
Thank you, everyone. Appreciate it.
Thank you all. And we will take a 5-minute break. No, here, come here. What is it?
I asked about the milk pond. The town manager said it would be discussed. Street. I asked the question at the prior select board meeting about the condition of the mill pond. They take the boards out, the water goes out, the level goes down, and all we see is sediment. I think at one point in the past, I was told the last time the mill pond was cleaned out was, I don't know, 1980s or whatever, a long time ago. If we're using that to stop some of the water flow, isn't it about time we cleaned it out again? I know it's expensive, it takes permitting process, the whole gamut of things, but isn't it time to do it? I see dead trees hanging in the water over there. This is Danvers. We're proud of Danvers. Pope's Landing, other things in Danvers. We're proud of them. We like to show them the mill pond. It's a pond. It looks nice. The ducks are there. Some people fish there. I hope they don't eat the fish, but they fish there. I'd like to see the situation over there improved. And again, I've asked in the past, and I was hoping that somebody to talk about
I don't
water.
think there's a simple answer.
Okay, can we have some kind of an answer then?
Steve, do you have
Besides-
some kind of an answer?
Besides, we're working on it.
What is the question, Bill? Sorry.
Wants to dredge the mill pond.
I don't, that's nowhere on the horizon as a capital project. We're not working on that.
Not even
We've got to dredge the four rivers before we dredge the mill pond.
I just wanted to bring it up. I can't be the only person in town who sees that and wonders why. I chose to ask. We're working on it. We'll.
After the Four Rivers.
All right. Thank you for your answer.
Thank you. Okay. Steve, you ready to go to the strategic plan?
Sure.
So we're going to perhaps consider a vote to adopt the new town strategic plan. Steve?
Yeah, so we had a presentation at the last meeting on the draft plan, had some very brief discussion that night about the plan and the recommendations, and the board was asked to send any follow-up questions or comments prior to this meeting so that we can consider adoption of this plan and put it into the hands of staff to start implementing what we can. Dan had raised or shared, I think, some observations more so than questions, and I know Dee shared some questions earlier today with me. So if the board has any questions, I'd be happy to answer them. I asked Aaron to stick around. Some of the questions might pretend there are a lot of land use and community services action items in the back of this. So we'd be happy to take any questions. And then if the board is comfortable taking a vote tonight, we'd look to adopt this and put it alongside the resiliency plan as something that staff can start implementing.
Mike, any questions?
Yes, so if this is approved, then this is to give permission or direction to other departments to do their part of this initiative?
Yeah, what I have, I mean, there are some elements of both plans that would require town meeting to participate in, but there's a lot of items in both the resiliency plan and the strategic plan where specific departments are identified as ones to start to move these initiatives forward. We paused and this is kind of one aspect of that, but we paused the evaluation instrument process for the management team last year in anticipation of these plans being finalized with the idea, we're gonna have a committee. I had a dozen or so members of the management team that expressed an interest in helping to revamp the evaluation process that they use each year, and we'll be incorporating the recommendations out of both plans into those documents so that specific people will have specific items from the plans that essentially are theirs to carry forward.
And if it's approved, is it etched in stone, or is it a strong suggestion?
Yeah, so this is not a legally binding document. This is a document that if adopted by the board in the same, when the board voted on the climate action plan last year, it's establishing goals. We're not going to achieve all those goals, but it gives some focus and guidance to staff in terms of how to prioritize their time. They'll probably be bringing recommendations back through next year's budget process that align with some of these goals, and then the board will have a chance to vote on those as part of that process, as will the Finance Committee and Town Meeting.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, an example from the resiliency plan is there was a recommendation there that the town consider a stretch building code. That will be a controversial subject that's going to require a lot of education, and ultimately town meeting will decide whether they want to do that or not. So it's in the plan as something that we should at least be talking about, but ultimately the town meeting will make that decision.
Okay, thank you.
Maureen?
What were the questions that you asked the town manager? Can you share?
I will.
Okay, I'd
I'm
like
going to
to-
give you folks the opportunity to go before me.
Yeah, I wanted to hear.
You want me to go before you?
Yeah, that'd be
Okay.
great, yeah,
Dee, do you mind?
That I go?
No, that I go.
I wanted to hear his questions and
Oh, no
maybe your
problem at
questions too.
Typically, I like to
Do
go
have
last.
some too, yes.
On page 21, under action plan, the statement is, private property owners can take actions that lead to new housing and other redevelopment. How would I, as a private property owner, what actions could I take for new housing?
I think there's a specific answer and a general answer. The general answer is when we rezoned the downtown in 2017 and 2020, I think we had something like 25 public meetings as part of the process to update the zoning the first time. And those meetings were attended by property owners and renters and businesses. And so getting feedback from property owners as to what future use or what they would like to be able to do with their properties. I think the best example of that right now is Simon Properties, which owns the Liberty Tree Mall. We've been trying to engage them for a number of years to talk about, what would they like, what would be helpful? How can we partner with them? What can we do to support them? We had gone to them to talk about, housing as an option in that part of town probably 5 years ago, and they said that's a great idea. And then 6 months later, they were building housing at the North Shore Mall across the street. So we thought, well, I guess we helped Peabody out in that regard.
So this,
But we can't tell the
this
private-
statement really doesn't affect residents.
No.
Single-family homeowners.
Correct.
But it says, private property owners. I'm a private property owner, but that's not directed to the small properties. You're talking big.
It is generally it is in the sense that when we talked about the rezoning for the downtown and having the staggered densities as you move out into the residential neighborhoods, there may be a property owner in that neighborhood who'd love to turn their house into a two-family. So they would engage in that discussion as part of that process, and ultimately.
Oh, we should allow that by right in some places, period.
Yeah. I think what it means is that we set the table, but the private sector is going to decide what they are going to do or not do with their properties. We can't tell anybody what to do.
It's private sector, it's not private residence as such. Okay, that's why I was confused. Page 22, 1A, it's to update inventory of park and open space conditions and accessibilities. I think it's easy to take an inventory of the parks, but it's more important we take an inventory of the condition of these properties. The parsonage site off of Center Street is in very poor shape. Nobody's really taking care of it. And some of the other areas, we have a problem at Intercot Gardens, I'll refer to that again, where the mowing is sporadic at best. So the conditions are not conducive to folks getting to their garden sites. And really, to be nitpicking, walk in the front door and look at all the weeds on our steps. That's terrible. It shows that we're not proud of our property, as Mr. Bradstreet says. So somebody needs to be out there addressing these small issues. We need to take more pride in our properties. I mean, if I let my house go like that, my wife would throw me out if I let that many weeds grow in my front steps. So
The
take a
only
look
thing,
when you walk in.
I'm going to agree with everything you just said. I'm also going to make the note that we know that we're not going to be hiring more staff anytime soon across our departments to meet the demands that you're describing. We're also in the.
They're not demands, I'm pointing out
No,
poor
no.
conditions.
I don't mean demand as in pounding the table, I mean service level demand, right? We're in the height of grass growing season, so things are going fast right now. So I just want to be careful to say, I don't think it's a question of pride in work. I think the people who work in those departments are incredibly proud of the town and incredibly proud of their work. But, you know, we have 1 million square feet of buildings and more than that in open space. And I don't think town meeting is going to add 10 employees to the Public Works Department to be able to get out and be on that all the time everywhere. But with respect to the point you're making, I think we are going through the process of updating the open space recreation plan, and I believe that the historic sites are already part of that plan. And I think that having a full documentation of that along, the plan does call for a condition analysis as well. So I would agree completely with what you just said on that. I think it's there, and I think it's important.
Okay, and last, and I talked about this before, page 28, 4D, to create a cultural district enabling the community and the nonprofits to apply for grants. I know it's in there, and I hope that, I don't know what division is or entity is going to move that forwards.
Yeah, that's on Recreation's work
That's
plan
on
already.
Recreation,
Yeah.
okay. All right. Those are my thoughts. Dee?
Yes, thank you. I would say, I mean, great report. I like the roadmap and a lot of great information. I would say at the outset, I wish there were more details in some sections than there are, because I like to map things in my head and see how they will play out. A few questions. If I start by page 22, 1A, and that goes across 1A, 1B, 1C, 1D, 1F, there's a lot of talk about securing funding. Because all these things are great, but we're going to need money to be able to do these things. I wish there were more details there. They are not. But there's also some talks about training the staff into applying for grant. I think I will prioritize something like that. I do think that and I don't know the legal part of it, as a town, we can do a better job having some philanthropists help us out, writing grants. Is that something that we will have the staff to do, or do we need to hire an outside consulting company to help us do that?
I would say two things. I think specifically that's a recommendation that we now at the staff level have to think through and come back and talk to this board about. You know, the idea has been floated in the past about having a standalone, you know, someone in the finance department who's responsible for managing grants on behalf of all departments. We do get a lot of grants. Each department is responsible for the most part for applying for its own grants. I think there's a fair question of how efficient that is. Most of those people also have jobs and duties that they're responsible for when they're not writing grants. So that's a very specific operational, you know, which bodies are assigned what and what's the best way to approach that. With respect to the finding funding, I think generally towns and cities are responsible for funding the vast majority of what they want to do. There are grants out there through the state for very specific things and very general things. Mass Trails has lots of money for, you know, recreational type projects. Mass Works will support small infrastructure projects. But there is no magical source of money out there waiting to pay for towns and cities to do capital work and projects and things like that. And philanthropy in the public sector, you know, we found somebody who wanted to have the football field named after them. You're not going to find somebody who wants to pay money to offset part of our capital budget each year. Nobody wants to pay for that. But there are opportunities to partner, and there are opportunities to find those sources. Sorry? The garden today. So we got a $25,000 grant from South Signaling to build a beautiful garden attached to the Endicott Visitor Center. It's a great project. We toured it this morning. What I will say is that we have a $190 million annual operating budget, and that's a $25,000 grant. So not moving the needle in terms of property taxes or anything like that, but important because in an environment where we're at our levy limit, right? We just passed a budget a month ago that spent every single penny of our tax levy to maintain level services. So we're not doing a rain garden at the Endicott Park if we can't find an external partner to do something like that. So it's always going to be a challenge. I think what's lacking in detail there is really for staff to come back and talk about, here's how we approach that. Are we looking at a grant position that supports all departments? If so, how do we pay for that? Do we have a position that we can sort of re-engineer to do that? Those come after the plan's in place.
Okay. I like the cell signaling was actually, I didn't want to cite them. I did not know, but it was one of the companies I had in mind. It's a tight budget. I would take $25,000 every day of the week. So every little bit, I think, counts. If we want to have a youth center, maybe we'll have someone to pay for it. So there are definitely ways. I think, I don't know what that looks like, but I do believe that that's something we have to put a lot of importance on. Also, page 24, 2C, and bullet 2 and 3, it says to develop and implement a retention strategy and support for existing businesses. I was part of this report that the company helping us was gonna help us develop these things, or that's for staff to do. This is part of where I thought it was lacking some details. I would have hoped for them to help us develop these strategies, and then we can implement them. Because now it almost sounds like we have to do the work or get somebody else to help us develop these strategies. Because these are important things, but I don't know what that means. Is that something that's going to be done at the staff level, or are they going to come back with more detail? Or
I'll give Aaron a chance to weigh in. So specifically, the scope of work is done. So there was no second scope of work. We do have, Brian Zucchelli is our Director of Planning and Economic Development. We do have capacity in-house to support economic development. With the MBTA zoning in the rearview mirror now, I think that's, Aaron and I have had conversations, and I want to give him a chance to talk a little bit about sort of what that looks like. But generally speaking, it will be an in-house effort. We certainly could partner with an outside entity to help us focus in the right places, but that's something that we would do in-house.
Yeah, and again, I think to kind of pick up on what Mr. Barth is speaking about, I think we internally had some milestones that we needed to get through, MBTA Communities Act being a big one. We're trying to now navigate pivoting to being more out there with the businesses. We've been talking to the Peabody Chamber, talking to the Greater Beverly Chamber, talking to the Danvers businesses downtown, trying to figure out kind of what that looks like, how can we support them, how can we better be visible for them. Also that, and then you have the Cherry Hill Electronics Ave scale business. So we're really right now trying to internally discuss how to navigate and pivot to make sure that we're being visible and present in those communities. So, but again, I'd love it if we could find more money to have somebody come in and do the work. Unfortunately, at the end of the day, someone's got to get in the stall and start mucking, and I think that's going to happen in the planning office. So.
Yeah, I think it'll be important, and that even ties to the question I had on page 25 on 2D, bullet 3, because we're talking about proactively engaging with commercial properties owners to facilitate potential partnership with interested developers. I think that partnership is going to be huge, not only to bring more businesses in town, but to keep them in town. And so if your office can emphasize some of that would be great.
And I would say, and I apologize for jumping in, I think our office always encourages property owners with any questions about what can happen on their site, what the town is looking for. We get that a lot. What does the town want? we are happy to give people, we will let them know if they've tapped us too long and we've given them too much time, but generally speaking, zoning and development, and permitting and licensing is a maze to navigate. And we encourage people to come in all the time. Like Steve said, we started with the owners and managers at the Liberty Tree Mall site 5 years ago to have a conversation about what do you think you need in that corridor. We've reached out to the hospitals, or to Leahy and to MGH about, you guys seem to be, investing in the area. What do you need in this area to support what you're doing? And so we're trying to have those conversations, like Steve intimated. Sometimes you have the conversation and they say thank you very much, and then it's 3 years before you hear from them again. But that is something, generally speaking, this goes from a single-family homeowner all the way up to our largest landowners and largest properties in town. If you come to the office, we will sit with you, open the book, and we will go through it and try to help you figure out what you can do, and how we can help you get there.
Thank you. And I'll push it one step further. And I don't know, again, there's a lot of work, but I'm not envisioning waiting for people to come to my office. It's us going to the people where they are, meeting them where they are, and initiating these conversations instead of waiting for them to come to us. That's why I like the fact that we're saying proactively engaging them. Page 26, on 2D, was it 26? Let's see. On page 25, that was 2D. Oh, 3C, I'm sorry. 3C. So it says enhance two-way communication between neighborhood residents and town departments. I don't know to you, Mr. Chairman, can town meeting members play a bigger role in this than they currently do? Because as a town meeting member, I used to talk to my neighbors, and I've called the town for different issues at different point of time and relate information. But can we make a concerted effort to get town meeting members more engaged because they are closer to the people they represent than town hall? How can they fit into this bullet? Or let's think about how town meeting members can fit here as a resource for the town administration to have this two-way communication. Just food for thought. And I had one more point here on 29F, page 29F, which is identify and recruit qualified candidates for town boards, committees, and the town workforce. And then as part of it, it says to fill vacant position on board and committees with qualified people and work with the Director of Equity and Inclusion to do so. I know the position, we had a position that was created only a couple years ago. Have that been, do we do that now? Did we do in the past? Or how do we intend to do that in the future?
Yeah, I mean, so there's almost two separate things. I think one of the things, when our Equity and Inclusion Director came on board, the Disability Commission had been dormant for quite some time in Danvers. That has been resurrected, so she has led that effort to bring, it's now the Accessibility Commission, and the roles and requirements for that committee are spelled out in statute, but she brought that back. We've had a system in place for much of the time I've been here. Maureen mentioned the talent pool. So we have a form. I used to take that to Saturday mornings at the library and put them into the hands of other parents who were there with their kids. So we've put that out in different places in the community, the senior center, the library, through the schools. We've probably placed, I haven't updated the numbers in the past year and a half or so, but at one point, I think we were approaching 100. We were at 80 at one point, so we've probably had 100 people who have engaged with our local government through that process, which asks just a series of simple questions. Who are you? What are you interested in working on? On the back of the sheet, we describe each committee in very generic terms. So for the planning board, we don't say, you enforce Chapter 48 of the state law. We say that you serve with your fellow residents to make decisions that relate to the physical built environment in your community. So that's been very successful. I think I'd want to probably have a follow-up with the consultant even to ask, what specifically they mean by this, because they may not be aware of some of those efforts.
Definitely, yeah, I think that would be something worth, pursuing. So, thank you.
Thank you, Dee. Maureen?
Yeah, thank you. Dee, Dan, love your questions. First of all, I want to say, Aaron and Stephen, I hear lots of compliments about you guys all the time. People come up and say you're very knowledgeable and helpful. So thank you for what you do in putting this all together. I also agree, I also agree with Dee about, when we just don't stay in our office, we need to get out there. The communication's key. So anything we can do with the businesses, the residents, with the residents' webpage, that we're going to do too. I think that's great. My question is with, we're talking about capital improvements and work and things like that. My concern is that we don't have a DPW director right now, so that's something we need to, really search out for and probably wait for their opinion too. Other than that, I think the grant, I brought this numerous times. I think if it's in our budget, Steve, I think it would be worth us to look into, someone that specifically writes grants. That's almost like their full-time job, to find the money, because there's a lot of money out there. People just don't know how to do it. I know that there was some people for the schools that did it. I'm sure, like Steve said, every department does it, but if we could somehow find a grant writer to give you guys more money and give the residents more money. But I think that's pretty much, I like the workforce and the qualified boards on the page 29F. And the zoning development, I think that's very important with us to keep the businesses engaged. I think that's very important. Keep everybody, informed of what's going on. I like how you say, how can we keep town meeting members more engaged and more involved? I think that's good, and I'm all set. That's it for me, Dan. Thank you.
Thank you. So, Board, we want to take a vote to adopt this plan, which is a roadmap, fully realizing there are limitations on both money and staff to implement it all. But I'm sure the staff will prioritize and move forward with what they can shortly and plan for the future on some of the other items. So I think a simple vote to adopt is what we need.
I move that we adopt the roadmap.
Thank you. Is there a second? I'll second it. Any discussion? Concerns?
I just really wanted to wait until we figure out with the new DPW director. We can't do that, Dan?
We could,
Yeah.
but he's going to get this as his roadmap.
Yeah.
That's what the work was done. And this is a result of what the citizens wanted. The citizens came up with all these ideas. They were approached at meetings. They were invited to come to meetings. They were asked Downtown Rewind last year for their input, and this is what this is a result.
No, I saw that, a lot of communication.
A lot
that
of
they went out to
communication.
groups that they
Right.
went out to. I'm just concerned about maybe getting another position, another person's feedback. That's a big job. So I'd probably like to wait a little bit until we maybe fill that position and get some more feedback from that person.
Can I ask a question? Sure. Could you be specific in what you think a new DPW, we have an acting director, we have all of the work that was being done 2 months ago being done. I guess I'm curious what specifically you think will be enhanced in this plan by having that job title filled.
I just feel that with the new DPW director, with a new fresh set of eyes or something like that.
This isn't their plan, though. This is
I know, but
your plan.
Right, but just to help with staff, with Stephen, with you, with Aaron, maybe some more ideas, how we can get Danvers to the next level.
But as Dan said, this reflects feedback from the community, not the DPW director. David was not a participant in this. I'm a little confused.
All right, well, anybody else want to chime in?
Yeah,
It
and
is, it's a result of a survey to the citizens. Mr. Bradstreet was at many of those meetings, over many of other people. This is from the citizens for what they think Danvers should look like in 2030. And this is the roadmap to help us get there.
But it's also given duties to certain people too, right? Certain downtown departments.
It's my job to
That's
assign
his job,
duties to
yeah.
staff.
Okay. All right, that's it.
And to you, Mr. Chairman,
Yes.
the way I look at it is like, this is like a big idea, but as I mentioned, we still need to see some details.
That's what I want.
So approving this doesn't mean that, because here there's not a lot of details to exactly how actions are going to be taken. I see it more as a big idea, and then we will see the details of the action.
Sure,
So the
it's a big
approval is
idea,
just-
and we'll work down to find out what is important.
Exactly.
How to get this. It's a roadmap where we're gonna go. And I don't think it makes a difference if we adopt it or not. It's still a plan. I just don't want to see it put into the drawer and forgotten about. And if we vote to adopt it, it helps staff work on it. It gives them direction.
Does it hold anything back if we didn't vote on it? Is there any,
I don't see an advantage to holding back. What is that going to accomplish?
is there a
It's
negative?
going to be the same plan in August as it is tonight.
I mean, I'll probably say I do see a negative, because I think that as a board, we have to take a stand and support the town manager so that we can hold him accountable when the time comes. So if this is the roadmap that we are putting forward for the town manager and the staff, then we need to give him all the support he needs to be able to implement it, so that we can come back and say, this is where we were going. Are we going exactly where we were going? If we don't take a stand or we don't approve it, then what are we basing our assessment on? Then it's almost like, okay, you do whatever you
So
want.
Dee, if I may, typically we set goals for the manager to work on in a given year. We haven't done that yet. My sense is any goals we set in the future may come from this plan.
It's not part of it.
And it's plans that we can use. And by assigning the goal to the manager, and he to his staff, he'll be held accountable, and hopefully we'll get something done.
I would remind the board, too, this plan was a strategic objective of the board. The board asked for this plan to be created. Staff obtained a grant to do that. We talked to thousands and thousands of residents to ask what was a priority for them, and this is the product. So the board doesn't have to, if the board chooses not to adopt this, we can continue to do what we do. We're good at our jobs, and we'll continue to work. This is for the benefit of the board, but we're not going to force the board to vote on it, so.
Yeah, and if I just can chime in too, the vision of this goal, as it states, Danvers is a North Shore community that prizes a vibrant downtown, supportive neighborhoods, and treasures open space. We welcome new residents and businesses while ensuring everyone in our community enjoys a high quality of life. We take pride in our rich history, strong sense of community, and the art, culture, and events that bring us together. We proactively manage change as we grow responsibly and remain strong steward of our physical and financial resources. That is the vision that I see through this plan, and then the details will have to be worked out. So I think it's a really good vision and good plan. Obviously,
So this board, if we want to adopt the vision, which is this plan, to encourage implementation in the future,
that is right.
we need to take a vote to say that's what we want. So again, I'll ask for a motion to adopt. Do you want to make a motion to adopt it, Dee? or-
Sure, I move that we adopt the plan.
Is there a second? I can see where this is going. I'll second it. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed?
No.
No,
The motion fails.
we just need more time, I think. I'm still ingesting a lot of it.
We want to bring it up in August?
I think the board can let us know when you'd like it back, and we're happy to return. That's up to the board. This was your goal, so we're good.
Yes.
Okay. Next item, the manager will report to the board on various items of interest.
Three quick items. First, information went out through the Salem News today and on social media. It's going to be hot this week, in case you didn't know that. We don't have a formal cooling center set up per se, but as was announced through the various channels, if people are in need of someplace for relief, they should call the Police General Line, 978-774-1212. I sent an email out to the board over the weekend. The governor, at this point, subject to anything that may change resulting from the heat wave, is planning to be in Danvers on Thursday the 20th at 2:30 at the New England Home for the Deaf. She is intending to do an announcement on housing development and hold a brief press conference. All are welcome to attend. I'll be introducing the governor and offering some comments on Danvers' recent history with our zoning and some of the projects we've seen. And then looking further ahead, on July 13th, from 1 to 3 p.m. in the Elm Street lot across from Town Hall, the Human Rights and Inclusion Committee is sponsoring the Race Amity Multicultural Festival, music education, and more. You can find information on that on the website and social media. And prior to that, on June 25th, Downtown Rewind will be having a second annual event from 5 to 8 p.m. On Maple Street. Music, food, games, and more. That's all I have, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you. Can we have a motion for the consent calendar, please?
Make a motion to consider the consent calendar as they appear below.
Is there a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you. Correspondence, new business. Board members, I'd like to know your feeling on getting together for, I'll call it a retreat, to sit and talk about various subjects, the strategic plan, things that may be on your mind, our goals and code of conduct, et cetera. Is that agreeable?
Yes.
I see a nod over here.
Yes.
Yes. Steve, would you set up through your office a time and a place and perhaps a facilitator to run the meeting?
I will.
Thank you. And we'll do it in the summer sometime. Very good, thank you. Maureen, any
Sure.
updates?
Well, we're not going to see anybody right for the month of July, so I wanted to say thank you to all the teachers and the staff, all the town employees, and everybody that keeps our kids safe and gives them a good quality education. It's a tough job, and I appreciate I have the privilege once in a while to go pick up or drop off the grandkids, so I'm excited to have the kids get the start of summer. I know that they have some terrific programs at the Danvers Library for people to take advantage of that. Always check with this heat. I feel bad for the workers and everything. Wally, you look exhausted. But check on people, make sure that they do have a means of being cool and stay hydrated. But other than that, I just want to say thank you to the board members and town manager and all the staff, the clerk too. She always does a wonderful job with everything, and all Bill and Tony and Nova. And seeing the town moderator tonight was good too. Like seeing Pat Frazier, she does a great job. But other than that, have a wonderful month of July. Happy 4th of July. Watch for the events that Steve mentioned. So, that Danvers Downtown Rewind is good. And let's encourage businesses, to stay here in Danvers and prosper too. Thank you.
Thank you. Dee?
Thank you. have a few updates. I attended the planning board meeting here. This room was packed. I mean, I actually had to stand out for the first half of the meeting because there were so many people here. And part of the issue was the new hangar at Beverly Airport that was discussed by the planning board. Let me preface by saying the planning board is the body that is dealing with this specific issue of the hangar. However, this also brings up a broader conversation about the town relationship with Beverly Airport. I would like to have a broader discussion about the airport. People are very upset. The anger in this room was palpable from our concerned residents. And I don't know a lot about it, but when I'm told that the sound of a jet is less than my vacuum cleaner, I pause and be like, okay, either I have bad hearing or, so this is definitely a discussion. I don't know the role of the board or the select board in these discussions. I would like some clarifications about what the select board has done in the past, what they're doing, what we are doing now, or what we can do in the future. Maybe that will require bringing in town council to kind of give us some advice and recommendations. Because I think it's very easy to say the FAA controls everything, but that's not always the case. Maybe the FAA doesn't control everything. Maybe they allow localities to do certain things, and I think that's something that I will really want to get more information about and see what we can do. I mean, if someone stands there and say their house is getting flooded or their windows shatter because of the vibration, I think it's important that we give it some attention and find out what, if anything, we can do to help these residents. I also attended on 6/4 the Pride flag raising at the police station. Kudos to the HRRC for spearheading this event again this year. And I'll give a special thanks to Chief Lovell, Captain Sanborn, and Lieutenant Rob Sullivan. This is about promoting inclusivity and recognizing the diversity within our community. And events like these strengthens our community as a whole and building an inclusive environment. I did also attend the Juneteenth event in front of Town Hall here yesterday, another great event. And, I think this is the third year we're having it. The proclamation that was signed by this board a few years ago was read. And thank you to the HRC again and to Juneteenth Association for helping us with the event. The last update I have is I attended the new Select Board training on June 7th. It was an all-day Select Board training in Danvers, and I was there with my fellow board member, Mike. We actually sat at the same table. And the agenda included things like introduction to open meeting law and public records law, municipal finances 101, how to develop strong relationship with your town manager. So I'm better at this than I was last week, Steve. Public speaking and civility in local government, public engagement for select board, lot of learning, very informative, and it was a great opportunity to network. So thanks for sending the information out. Last but not least, I just want to wish everyone happy Juneteenth tomorrow and happy 4th of July, since we are not going to meet before then. Thank you.
Thank you. Mike?
I think we have a bunch of new graduates at the high school, don't we? Is that
We do.
accurate? And at the tech, too?
Yep.
So I just want to say congratulations to all the new graduates and all the families. And don't forget to get into the trades. It's okay. You don't have to run to college. We need you in the trades. I hope everybody has a great summer and you're safe. Thank you.
Thank you. At this time, I'd like to acknowledge that former selectman, chairman of the Finance Committee, town meeting member Ralph Hamill passed away recently. I can't remember when he was, it's before your time, Kathy, when he was a select board member.
Correct.
Right. But please think of Ralph and his family. Happy 4th, and if you see a vet, please say thank you to the vet. And with that, if there's no other business to come before the board, meeting adjourned. Good night, all. Have a good summer.